Okay, well, welcome to the webinar today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dave Meacham. I'm a packaging strategist for Eagle Flexible Packaging. My role here at Eagle is in a sales capacity, working with our clients from a traditional packaging, flexible packaging standpoint, and also looking at sustainable alternatives. And today we're just talking about traditional versus compostable packaging and how to decide if that's right for you and which ones might work best. Joining me today is Heather Ostring from Foodamora, who's a partner of ours as a raw material supplier for compostable materials. Heather, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello to everybody. And thank you, Dave, and actually the whole team at Eagle Flexible for inviting me to join in today on the webinar. It really is an exciting opportunity for us to be working together and truly being partners in our efforts to drive compostable packaging forward, because it really is the future of flexible packaging. So again, my name is Heather Ostring. I am the regional sales manager covering the central United States for Foodamora. For those of you who don't know who is Foodamora, and no, it's not pronounced Futurama, just in case that's a question. It is Foodamora, and we are a Japanese-based company, been in business for about 70 years. We acquired all of the cellulose business and assets from Innovia Films last year. So going forward, when you think of cellophane and NatureFlex films, think of Foodamora. Personally, I have been with Foodamora since the onset of the acquisition back in July of last year. I have a history of working with Innovia Films in my past life, and also about 17 years in total working in the flexible packaging industry. At both supplier and converter levels. It is because of partners like Eagle that makes this industry so much fun to be a part of. Eagle is completely set up to support any of your company's initiatives to move into or to start your product with a responsible compostable package.
Thanks, Heather. Appreciate that. Let's move on to the agenda for today. So we're going to go through this agenda here. We're going to talk a little bit about who Eagle is and what we do. We're going to discuss compostable materials versus traditional materials. We're going to define what is compostable flexible packaging, and then have some discussion around how to decide if it's for you and what that means. And then we're going to look at some additional sustainable options that might apply that you may be interested in addition to compostable or to go along with it. At the end, we'll go through and have our closing remarks and then welcome questions, time permitting, as many as we can fit in to get some information back to you on questions. And obviously we'll have our contact information available to you if you want to reach out to us on an individual basis with any questions that you might have as well. So let's start with talking a little bit about who Eagle Flexible Packaging is. So just as a brief overview, Eagle Flexible Packaging is a printer converter that is completely vertically integrated in our offerings and services, with the exception of we do not make our own films. We partner with some of the, what we feel is some of the better manufacturers of films out in the marketplace, Foodamora being one for compostable films, obviously, and that's why they're invited here today. But we are a printer converter, vertically integrated from pre-press through finishing and converting, and some other services that we offer that I'll talk about as well. When we talk about the vertical integration, pre-press, we do everything in-house. We make all of our own plates here, so we control that process. We have a a proprietary process for making laser engraved plates that are very high quality, oftentimes mimicking some of the rotogravure printing that's out there. In fact, we have rotogravure customers who have converted their package printing to us in a flexographic environment because they feel that our quality meets that level. So we do all of our plate making in-house. We do all of our printing in-house. All of our laminating is done in-house. We have some proprietary processes in the print line where the lamination is done in line with printing, which saves a process, speeds up time to market for products for our customers. And then in finishing converting, we can pretty much finish and convert any type of pouch that's out there, quad pouches, your standard stand-up pouches. We have some features called pour and lock, which is a process where we apply a zipper to film and allows a stand-up pouch to have a reclosable pour and lock feature. If that's something you're interested in, I'm happy to get you information on that. And then in addition to our finishing and converting, we have a part of our business known as Eagle Innovation. And Eagle Innovation is really working with our customers or potential customers to provide process improvements and operational efficiencies in the manufacturing and filling process for the packaging that we manufacture. So we actually, in a sense, consult with our clients to help increase throughput at their facilities, make equipment recommendations. We do have some lines of equipment that we represent that we can make recommendations for. We can look at what's going on. There may be some adjustments that we make or some that allow us to down gauge films, thus actually making a sustainable option there, and because there's less material being used in the process, but also looking at reducing costs in that area as well by going to lower gauge films that give you the same end result. So that's a separate item that we can help with, and Eagle Innovation, happy to talk to you about that as well if that's something that's of interest to you. Looking at the products, you talked about preformed pouches. We could do pretty much any type of preformed pouch that you are in need of. Printed roll-fed film, that's pretty self-explanatory, but can be used in vertical, horizontal machines to make your end product. We have interlock, as we call it, which is basically applying a zipper to printed roll-fed film. It can be a front zipper, a bag top zipper, or the pour and lock pouch that I talked about. And then we do all types of laminated structures. Our laminated structures can be as simple as 2 layers up to 4, 5, 6 layers, depending on the needs of the customer. Talking about the markets that we serve, as you'll see here, many of these are in the food industry, from the food and beverage and frozen foods through all types of dry ingredients, coffees and teas and such. We also do a fair amount of work in the pet food industry. Nutritional supplements is definitely a growing industry, going into flexible packaging, all the powders and protein powders and things of that nature that are growing. We also see a growth in the industrial marketplace, industrial commercial products. Think of fluids and oils and things like that may need to go into flexible packaging. Maybe not a great fit for sustainable, but definitely a growth area that we're getting into as well. So with that overview, let's go a little bit into what compostable and versus traditional packaging is. I'm going to talk about traditional flexible packaging and really some of the benefits and advantages of that. So the materials that we're talking here in conventional can be polyesters, polyethylenes, nylon, metallized films, and foils delivered in a package, laminated to solve different problems, barriers, levels, sealants, and such. Some of the advantages of flexible packaging, obviously, we get a lot of product conversion from rigid packaging over to flexible, and some of the reasons around that are it's a lightweight option. It's easy to open, store. You can carry it. It takes up less storage space in a warehouse, so it's less inventory. There's less SKUs to manage, obviously, with rigid packaging, especially canisters and such. You have multiple pieces, labels, lids, and a canister to manage. So there's more SKUs in the process to manage. So those are some of the good things about it. Also, it does reduce carbon footprint because you're not shipping air. So you're not only do your costs go down for shipping, but you're expending less carbon into the atmosphere. Some of the other things that extends shelf life for products because we can manage the different types of materials used in the flexible packaging. And there it also protects the freshness of the product. One of the other things that retailers and marketers love is that it gives you great visibility for your brand on the shelf. There's a certain amount of pop when you're printing this, and it really helps to sell your brand. And obviously, it's just one more spot where the consumer can see your brand on the shelf. So those are some of the main advantages of traditional packaging. Heather, I'm going to turn that over to you to talk a little bit about compostable packaging and how that kind of mimics, traditional and the additional advantages of compostable materials.
Sure, thank you. So when you are comparing traditional flexible packaging to compostable flexible packaging, the difference really is in the raw materials that are used to build that structure. So on the right side of the screen, materials listed under traditional flexible packaging, those are not compostable materials. Those materials would be changed to a different material, a compostable material, but would offer the same functionality. So with that, you would have the option to change all of the materials used within a structure to a compostable material and build a fully compostable structure, or you could change just one or more components within that structure to build a partially compostable, or what we would call a partially renewable structure. There really are a lot of benefits to doing this as well, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more later on. But when we talk about the materials used to make a compostable package, it's the cellulose or the wood pulp based films that really offer the protective properties that are needed in a package. So cellulose based films will be used as alternatives to polyesters, polypropylenes, and other barrier type films. So when you look at the advantages of traditional versus compostable packaging, you will see that you don't have to give up on the package performance to have a compostable package. You're actually adding value to your product with that compostability attribute. Now I'll let Dave go ahead on the next slide and talk about some of the additional sustainable options out there.
Thanks, Heather. So as we start to look at sustainable options, our viewpoint and what we see is that compostable materials are the most relevant when talking about sustainability and the effect on the environment and the end goal in mind that consumers have for packaging. It's the most environmentally friendly option. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the other things that we can do in combination with this. Using Futomura's NatureFlex compostable films, and then combining that with Eagle's Enviro flexible packaging and what that means. So Enviro is actually a registered trademark of Eagle's. It is available to use for our clients if they want to put it on the package, and that's something we can talk about as well. But really, Enviro talks about some of the things that we are doing in addition to looking at compostable films. Some of the things that we do, we have multiple options under this, but one is printing with low VOC water-based inks. VOCs are volatile organic compounds. It's measuring the amount of those that are being released into the atmosphere. Using water-based inks and adhesives lowers the VOCs as opposed to going to petroleum-based inks. So it's just another way of proving out that you're doing something good for the environment, and something that can be talked about on your package as well. So combining some of the low VOC inks and adhesives with compostable films tells a nice story. It allows you to really start to talk about what you're doing for the environment and how you're helping it, and it's a marketing play as well as doing the right thing, and goes to some of the core goals of some of the companies that we're working with these products. One other thing that we could talk about is a hybrid option. So that's combining our low VOC ink systems and trying to put as much sustainable content as possible into a package. There may be situations due to costs, supply chain lead times, or the inability to create a fully compostable package for a product, where you can't go that direction, but you might be able to do a hybrid option. So we might be able to combine a NatureFlex with a different type of sealant layer film that's not compostable, and then print it with low VOC inks and adhesives, so that you still are doing a hybrid option for this. It's still something you could talk about, but it's not a fully compostable package. This is just another option or way of thinking about this, and maybe a baby step in the right direction. So I think at the end of the day, really the goal is to fit the best option to our customers' needs, to create the most sustainable option to meet your goals. So really, it's a conversation and it's a journey. We're doing that a lot with the cooperation of companies like Futamura and our customers, and trying to find what the right way is to go forward with this. And it's a moving target. It's changing all the time. There's new products coming out. So we are definitely working diligently on this with a lot of our clients. So that gives you some other options, and happy to talk about that at some point. Heather, do you want to take on the next slide and talk a little bit more about Futamura?
Sure. We'll kind of dive in a little bit to compostable, flexible packaging and how it's defined here. First of all, Futamura we are dedicated, we are focused on continuing and supporting the steady growth of NatureFlex products that we have been seeing over the past 10 plus years. This is a growing market, and we are investing more into keeping up with the future demand, and then also on product development and making sure that we're able to offer the films needed to have that compostable alternative available to you. So when we talk about compostable packaging, and this is really just kind of a side note, it's just really important to understand the materials that you choose to use, and that they have been tested, that they've been certified. And in the end, the finished package, that it meets the requirements, to achieve proper certification. So, avoid greenwashing at all costs. Make sure that the claims that you make are always backed up by the relevant testing. So with that said, all of our NatureFlex films, they are certified through the proper channels. NatureFlex is our main compostable brand name. It is a renewable film. It is a compostable packaging film that we manufacture. As we kind of go through these bullet points, you'll see cellulose is from trees. And I just want to make it clear that NatureFlex films are made from cellulose, which comes from trees. It doesn't come from corn or any other products like that. It does come from trees. And cellulose-based films actually were the first transparent packaging material used. And I just find it really interesting that 100 years later, because this process has been around for 100 years, 100 years later, it almost serves a whole new purpose to the world of packaging. There is end of life, and these products don't need to go into a landfill. And since this process has been around for so long, we're very skilled at making this product. We're skilled in the applications it goes into, and there's really a strong comfort level with using these films. Also, NatureFlex films are based on renewable wood pulp. Considering renewable materials is really important because there might be some value in having renewable content for your particular brand or your customer base. Renewable materials use new carbon. I just want to point that out, new carbon, which comes from trees and plants and things like that, versus old carbon, which would be the oil-based types of materials. And then moving down, sourced from managed plantations. All of our wood pulp comes sourced from certified plantations that are FSC and PEFC certified. These are managed forest plantations where they actually cut down a portion of the tree to use for manufacturing, but keep that same tree growing in the same place. So we're not removing anything from the earth in order to make this process happen. Moving down again, typically greater than 90% of the films are composed of bio-based carbon content. That means that more than 90% of that film is renewable. It's renewable content. The films are certified based on EN 13432 and then the ASTM D6400 test methods. These are the test methods in which we are certified for industrial composting. And then right below that, you'll see where we have the SOT to the OK Compost Home Standards. So we are certified to home composting as well. We carry these certifications by the film grade and the film thickness, and we share these with our customers as they move forward in developing their packaging. Let's just talk a little bit about the packaging performance. Not only do you get the benefits related to compostability, but the film actually does what it needs to do in your process. We understand that shelf life extension is important, and we can offer the barriers that are needed in your structure. So with the NatureFlex products, we can offer tailored moisture barrier. We can also offer the aroma and the gas barrier that you may need. Cellophane and NatureFlex, they have natural barrier to these types of things, oxygen, moisture, and even mineral oils. Also with cellulose-based films, they're static-free. They don't have any static in them to start with, and they don't build up static in your processes. They're also heat resistant, they're machine friendly, they're printable with just about all ink types. They're adhesive compatible with most adhesive types. There's also some heat sealing properties that go along with our films. So really anything you need that product to do, our film can handle it. So now, when you look at NatureFlex from cradle to cradle, or you look at the life cycle of it, we like to call it from tree, film to compost. You can see that it starts out as trees to form into the raw material, which then undergoes the manufacturing process. We make a package, and then we have these end-of-life options. And I'll just quickly go through those. Most common are the industrial and the home compostability. Less common but growing is anaerobic digestion, and then there's incineration. So if anybody out there has specific questions on end of life, definitely reach out to us and let us know. We'll make sure we get those answered. And I think that pretty much covers everything on the slide that we have here for compostable packaging definition. We can flip over to the next slide and kind of get into how you decide what you want to use. And that's really the big question, I think, that we're talking about today. So if you look on the left side of the slide, you'll see all of the applications that NatureFlex goes into. You'll see that Eagle specializes in these applications. Some of them may align themselves better with the compostable package than others, depending on specifically what your product is. But if we want to go ahead and look at tea or coffee as an example, we can group tea and coffee together. But when you consider this market, there is interest by consumers because they're spending a lot of money on this type of product to have a responsible package. So as a brand owner, if this is a story that you want to tell, or you have the passion for the product, and this is really a nice opportunity to match the product with the packaging and send a really good message out to your consumer. I'm going to go on to the right side of the screen here and talk about how proper material selection is really important in this decision-making process as well. Now, when you're trying to decide, do I go compostable or do I not, once you decide to go compostable, kind of look at things a little bit differently. So now it's time, how do you choose your materials? For instance, let's look at a 3-ply traditional structure. There are 3 layers within that structure that are designed for your package integrity. So layer A, we like to call the appearance layer. So layer A would be the transparent, for instance, polyester layer that you use for stiffness, heat resistance, and printability. Layer B would be your barrier layer. This is the layer that you would use for protection of the product against moisture, light, gas, aroma. This is typically a metallized polyester or a foil layer. And then your layer 3 in this 3-ply structure would be your containment layer. Layer C for containment. This is the layer in which you would use your sealant film, and this would be for seal integrity. And with this one, always think about how you want your package to open and making sure that seal layer you choose is compatible with the opening of the package. You may want it to be a destruct seal, you may want it to be a peelable seal. Just something to think about there. Now, when you want to take that traditional 3-layer structure and you want to move it into a compostable 3-layer structure, here's what it would potentially look like. So your A layer would now go from a transparent polyester to a transparent native flex film. And that film can be gloss, it can be matte, it can be however you want it to look. It would be your printable layer. And then layer B, your barrier layer would go from a metallized polyester, let's say, and it would go into a metallized nature flex film. And then your layer C for containment, which might currently be in, a polyethylene sealant film, you would move that into some sort of biosealant. Now that would be a non-nature flex film grade, and not a film grade that we would supply, but Eagle would have a list of other suppliers that would give them options there, such as maybe a PLA film, thermoplastic starch-based film, PBS. There's all different types of sealant films that also are certified in many cases that can be used as that sealant layer. So with that being said, it's really important to understand what your product specifications are to be well versed in how specific materials will affect the overall quality of the product that's inside of your package. Determine what you want that consumer experience to be like when you're choosing those materials. A little bit on I just have one other comment on the choosing of the materials. Compostable structures are very customized, and Eagle Flexible does a really great job helping with looking at the product, what the needs are for the product, and helping you customize the best solution for you. Every single product is different. Every single product requires different packaging. And that's where the experts like Eagle can come in and really help dial in on what you want that to look like. And then the next bullet there is project versus price. I think we're all aware that a compostable package will cost more than a traditional package. But there are a lot of ways that we can do to close that gap. So just really important to have that discussion. If that becomes a roadblock for you, having that discussion with Eagle. There's things we can do with down gauging, removing plies of film. Sometimes the film you think you need might be over-engineered, and there might be opportunities where we can continue to reduce that cost. Next bullet there on conducting material trials. I think Dave and his team would agree that we're always going to run trials. We're going to make sure that everything we need to do on the equipment gives us what we need in that final package. When you change from a traditional to a compostable material, it's not always a drop-in type of a trial, so we definitely want to do our due diligence there. And then Dave, I don't know if you have any other comments on this slide or anything around the regulations and the marketing. I think that I covered most of what I wanted to. I will bring it back to you.
Sure. Thank you, Heather. That's a great overview on all this. I know we're throwing a lot of information at you at once, and it may stem some questions that you have. Feel free to go ahead and if you have questions now to type them in, and we'll get to them at the end, or we can take them offline on an individual basis as well. Regulations and marketing, it's a big area to talk about, and I don't want to go into too much depth there, but I do want to just make sure that people are aware that when you're marketing and making comments about sustainability, that your competitors are looking at that. Federal agencies are looking at that, and I would caution about making comments without looking at legal assistance to make sure that your claims that you're making are in line with what your product packaging is actually doing. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that because I know there's situations out there where you have to do certain certifications and just back up and make sure you have the documentation to support the claims that you're making. So that's just another area that's important as we go through this process with our clients and just making those claims. So did you have anything to add on that, Heather?
I don't.
Okay, thanks. All right, so on to the next slide. It's just really our closing remarks and just talking a little bit more about what we had gone over today. So we talked a lot about traditional packaging and the reasons why you would use flexible packaging over some of the other traditional rigid packaging methods, the benefits that it gives you, and then comparing that with compostable. And seeing that compostable gives you some of those benefits or most of those benefits of traditional flexible packaging plus more, and the sustainability option that you can use with that. We talked about the focus on compostable solutions and some of the things that we do with the low VOC inks, the solventless adhesives, how we can combine some of those options with maybe hybrid options or complete compostable solution. We didn't talk about recyclable materials. There are some options there as well, but we kind of went over that in a little bit of detail. Heather talked about how to decide what's best for you and some of the material structures and how that works for compostable materials. So we went over an overview with that. And then I guess, my closing remark is that choosing flexible packaging options, that's what we help our customers do. And whether it's a standard non-sustainable pouch that you're looking at for to run on the equipment properly for down gauging purposes, or moving towards a sustainable compostable option, we're here to help. We have the resources to do that, and we welcome that. Also, as a note, National Products Expo is coming up. We've been showing there for quite a few years. We have a booth there. We're going to be at booth 250. That'll be in Anaheim, California, March 9th through the 12th. And so we'll be there. I would welcome an opportunity. I will be there. Heather will be there. It'd be a great time if you would like to meet in person and talk. We would welcome any opportunity to set up a time to talk or come by our booth and learn more about us. We're going to have samples of some of these materials that we talked about today, and it'd be a great opportunity for us to engage and tell you more. We'll take some questions now. I have just on this slide here are both of our emails. Our direct phone numbers are on here as well. If you want to reach out to us on a one-to-one basis, we'd be happy to do that. So we have a couple questions. Let me see what we have here. So we have somebody who's asking about extending the shelf life and what the benefit is for that for compostables, how that can extend the shelf life. This customer has food products with a 9 to 12 month shelf life, and their concern is that the packaging might degrade prior to that time period and want to know if compostable packaging might be a good fit for this type of product. Heather, that's probably in your court. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, about the shelf life that's obtainable with compostable packaging?
Sure. That's a really good question, and I'm really glad that somebody asked that question. When we're building these compostable structures to replace the traditional structures, we're actually trying to match the shelf life requirements of the traditional structures. So we will always have the shelf life that you need for your product, no matter what the product is. Once the film is converted and formed into the package and the product is secured by the package, the shelf life is not compromised at all at that point. The material actually cannot start degrading or breaking down or doing anything without it being in a compost environment. So that material and that package will stay on the shelf and meet the needs that you have for a 9 to 12 month shelf life, let's say. So hopefully that answers the question. Dave, if you have anything to add, feel free.
Thanks, Heather. Here's another question. Are there minimum material requirements for compostable films? I think we've addressed this actually. Funny, Heather and I have been talking about this recently, about what the minimum order quantities might be for these materials. There are some issues with that as far as minimum order quantities. I think that those are slowly being addressed over time. I think, Heather, you probably can address the actual minimum order quantities, but I believe we're around 500-pound minimums outside of a trial when we're talking about going into production environments. Is there a quick rule of thumb of what 500 pounds equates to in the amount of material that is?
It really depends on the film and the size of the package or the impression size that you're working with. So, but it's pretty minimal. 500 pounds is really one small roll of film. But I think to answer that question, you've got the material requirements for each of the raw materials that you're using to build your structure. So the NatureFlex portion of it would be us, and we manufacture all of our NatureFlex products just as often as we manufacture our cellophane products. So our lead time would be the same on everything, and the minimums would be the same on everything. And it is that 500 pounds in most cases, and those films are manufactured in Kansas in the US. So minimums and lead times are typically not a problem with our grades of film, but I don't know if you use other compostable sealants and things like that that may pose a larger quantity as a minimum.
Yeah, good point, Heather. I think as far as minimum order quantities go with the sealant films, it's on a case-by-case basis. We haven't had issue with that. Certainly with trials, it's not an issue when we're doing trials. I think one of the bigger issues with the sealant films are the lead time to get this product, because the majority of the sealant films are made in Europe, and based on production lead times, and then the time it takes to get here, shipping by ocean. This kind of sounds bad, but lead times can be up to 12 weeks. However, when you start to work into forecasts for customers and looking at the supply chain, and making sure you have enough in the supply chain coming through, those lead times can be managed. We've also had situations where customers are having material air shipped in to get initial orders going, and then following up with ocean shipments. But that is definitely a case-by-case basis, and depends on the materials needed and the structure for the specific use for that client. We have another question, just in general, asking about prices, comparing prices of traditional to compostable films. And then a second part of that question from the same person asking about if we produce transparent bags. I'll take the second one first. That's a little bit more straightforward, but yes, we can produce transparent bags. We do it now. We have done it in the past, and we have more and more clients that are asking about that. We do transparent pouches of different types. Different structures, whether it's straight NatureFlex or using NatureFlex combined with a different type of sealant film. NatureFlex is a fairly clear material, and works well in that environment. When you say transparent bag, some of the sealant films are a little less transparent than typical. So it really depends, again, the case-by-case basis, but we can supply that. Heather, do you want to talk about price comparisons a little bit between traditional and compostable material?
Sure. Obviously, pricing is going to be more, like we had discussed earlier, and it really depends on the structure. But I would say in most cases you're looking at least doubling your cost overall. In some cases, tripling. So that's just kind of a general rule of thumb. And that's really all I have to add on that topic.
Yeah, I would agree. I've seen 2 to 3 times, just depending on what it is that we're making. I think as this grows more and more and becomes more readily available, and hopefully more the norm, we'll see prices come down. It's just a matter of getting the quantities and volumes up to the point where the cost can continue to come down. So the more earlier adopters we have, the better pricing is going to get. Also, I find, just as a note, I find companies who have larger margins typically are not as concerned with the unit cost of a bag, because they're seeing that what they're doing is the right thing in their mind, or they're seeing the marketing benefit or the revenue increase because they've gone to these films, that far offsets the additional costs they're paying. So it's just another note, and again, it really depends on any one individual customer's situation.
I'm just going to add one thing to that. When you're talking about that increase in price, it's really hard to talk about that once you have a product established, it's on the shelf, and it's in a traditional package. But when you first develop, or you're a startup of a new product, that's the best time to introduce this type of packaging with some organic line or some product that offers a lot of value, where you can afford to absorb that cost right up front in that development. And that's kind of where we see most of our business growing, is at the onset of those projects.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would not jump into it full force, but looking for new products that make sense, and then slowly roll it out across other ones as it grows. Absolutely. Another question. This is a good question. What are the barrier options that are available with compostable films? Talking about that versus traditional. Heather, you could probably talk to that. I mean, you have quite a few different options for barrier options for compostable films.
We do, and especially when you're talking about oxygen barrier, cellulose-based films inherently have amazing oxygen barrier, so we can almost always match or do better with that. The moisture barrier comes from the coatings that we use on the films, and that's where we can tailor moisture barrier to whatever it is that you need. So when you're comparing traditional versus compostable and you're trying to meet certain barrier requirements, there's typically not a huge challenge there. Like I said, we've got the metallized grades, which really help boost up that barrier. If you're looking for a clear structure and you need to match the barrier of something metallized, there may be some challenges with that. But again, we'll take these on a case-by-case basis, and most of the time we will be able to match the need with barrier requirements.
Thanks, Heather. So it looks like that's all the questions that we have. Oh wait, we have one more just pop up here. Just let me look here. So they're asking if the tear is comparable. When they found some challenges using PE to PE structures that require a laser perforation. That's probably. Yeah, you want to take that, Heather?
Sure, just because I really like that question. Another great one. And it's very true, and actually one of the great properties of cellulose-based films is the fact that it is an easy tear film. It's designed to tear in both machine and cross directions. So if you laminate any other film, polyethylene or what have you, to a cellulose-based film, you're going to have very good tear properties for an easy tear type package that does not require a perf or a tear notch or anything like that. So that is a very much growing market for us. And if that's something that you need in your package, definitely think about adding a cellulose-based film to your structure.
Great, thanks, Heather. And I think that the barrier or the sealant films that we'd be using in conjunction with the cellulose should still give the easier tear requirements that a customer might be looking for. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, it does look like that was our last question. I would definitely reach out, ask you who attended to reach out if you have additional questions. Again, our emails are here on this slide, as well as our direct phone number, so please feel free to reach out. Again, we'll be at Natural Products Expo, March, looks like I had the dates wrong, March 10th through 12th, not the 9th through 12th, at the Anaheim Convention Center in California. So hopefully we'll see you there, or we'll hear from you. I want to thank you all for attending and learning more about compostable products and how they compare with traditional packaging. And also want to thank Heather for joining us here and giving us all some great information. So thanks again for coming. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.